Listen to the Vibes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Listen to the Vibes. I have here Mr. Wesley Eure. How are you today, sir?
I am excellent. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, I can't thank you enough because you were a big part of my childhood. Saturday mornings, Land of the Lost, that was television for me.
Yeah. Run, Holly, run. There's a dinosaur. That's my entire performance for all those years on Land of the Lost. Of course, here I am, an old man with my dolls. I've got Enoch here from Land of the Lost, and I've got Cassie from Dragon Tales, which is a show that I helped create. But, yeah, Land of the Lost, it's been amazing. It just celebrated its 45th anniversary, 45 years ago. Who knew that when we were filming that show that 45 years ago, we'd still be talking about it, and it's still on the air. I mean, it just came back on the air on one of the channels, I think Tubi or something like that recently. It's been on Netflix, it's been on PBS. It's, it just keeps rebubbling up, sort of like the clam as well.
That's awesome, though. I mean, the kids should be exposed to those things because, I mean, Saturday mornings was special when I was a kid, I'd get up early, about 6 o'clock in the morning. I think the day started with Alvin and the Chipmunks, and then all the Sid and Marty Krofft shows.
Stuff and Lidsville, and there was Run Joe Run. There was Shazam with Michael Gray.
Yes.
It was back in the day. It was like a big event. Saturday was Kids' Day. Parents would sleep in. You'd grab your bowl of cereal. You'd sit in front of the TV and you'd watch until 11:30 noon, and then that was it. But you looked forward to it.
Oh, exactly. Oh, I remember when we used to get the TV guide in the mail, and I would run and I'd go get it, and I'd map out what I was going to watch for Saturday morning.
It's true. We had, because Kathy Coleman, who played Holly, and Phil Paley, who played Chaka, the monkey boy. We do a lot of shows together, these autograph shows like Comic-Cons and things like that. And it's amazing how many people we have come up to our table and talk to us how much it meant to them, because Land of the Lost it was written by the Star Trek writers. David Gerrold was our head writer. He wrote Trouble with Tribbles, if you're a Trekkie.
Yes,
Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov in the original Star Trek, created this character, Enoch.
I did not know that.
I see Kathy and I do the Star Trek convention at the Rio in Vegas every year, and Walter, of course, is there signing autographs, and he has his little hat on, and he comes shuffling over, and he goes, "Those damn Crofts! I should have gotten residuals on Enoch. I should have gotten residuals."
Well, he did a Saturday morning show too, didn't he?
Walter?
Yeah, I think he did.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was like, I don't remember if it was Jason the Star Command or something like that, but it was one of those Saturday morning shows. But
wow,
that's another show in itself.
It is. When people come up to our table, it's startling sometimes. We had one guy, he's in his 50s now because he used to watch Land of the Lost, and he said that he sort of was crying. And we're saying, "Are you okay?" He said, "Let me tell you something." He says, "I don't mean to be kind of like creepy here." He said, "But after the second season of Land of the Lost into the third season, we lost our dad and our uncle came in." He said, "My mom and dad were getting a divorce." Mm. And he said, "I didn't know how I was going to survive this." He said, "I was devastated. I couldn't stop crying. I didn't know what to do." He said, "But I saw in Land of the Lost, I watched you, how you were able to transition without your father and move on and have a life." And he said, "It helped me get through that time." And we were like hugging him. And, it's amazing. One girl from Compton, which was a really, really bad area, especially back in the 70s in Los Angeles. She said it was so dangerous in my neighborhood that we would watch Land of the Lost in the morning, and my mom wouldn't let us go out and play. She was scared. So we would play Land of the Lost the entire weekend, hiding, making caves and running around with Slee Stack and stuff like that. And we have so many stories. There was one guy that came up to our table in Los Angeles at a show, and he said, "Listen, I'm from Iraq, and I thought you guys spoke Farsi because it was dubbed back in the day into Farsi." And he said, "Land of the Lost, because the sci-fi and all the writers," he said, "I became interested in science." And he and his brother became two of the heads of Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena. And he said, "We'd like to give you a private tour of JPL." So Kathy and I went, and because of Land of the Lost, they let us into every nook and cranny of JPL. We even went into the room, this huge room. Imagine this room, there's tons of computers, one guy sitting there with a joystick and a computer monitor, and he's programming the rover on Mars for the next day. And they let us come into this room. You have to go through security. And he let us play with the joystick, driving Mars. And this guy had a driver's license for every rover he'd driven. The only guy that ever driven all the rovers that had ever been to Mars. And I mean, of course, when we played the joystick, it didn't move the rover because they program it, put it on the computer, test it out, and then they send it to Mars, and it takes 8 hours for the signal to get there, and then the rover moves. But we got to play with the joystick and pretend we were moving it. But it's amazing, the effect of this little show. And it was a Saturday morning show, a cheap little budget, but written by some of the greatest science fiction writers like D.C. Fontana and Larry Niven, all these people that back in the day, they were at the beginning of their careers, so you could afford them. And, a few years later, they were the #1 sci-fi writers, and you couldn't afford them. So.
Well, for people like me, I didn't have a whole lot of friends in my neighborhood. It got a little rougher as the older I got. Saturday mornings was an escape. And to have shows like yours and like you mentioned, Shazam, all these different shows, they impacted us in a certain way. And you don't want to sound like that guy said, a creep, or like this, oh, I'm a crazy fanboy or something. But these shows really meant a lot to us. This was another world. So, and unfortunately, the kids nowadays, it seems like they have a 30-minute commercial for a cartoon or whatever.
Also back then, it was, children's programming was regulated. And, most of because when I created Dragon Tales, which ran from 2000 to 2009 on PBS, it was unlike the other shows at the time for kids too, because most every kid's show was a smart aleck, young white kid putting down the parents, was smarter than the parents. And it was all about insults and about, hurting somebody and things like that. And Land of the Lost, the reason it held up so long, it was, we were a family, our father and our sister, Holly, and we were trapped in a world with dinosaurs. We had lost our mother, and there was a family group that held the show together. Mm-hmm. And it touched on a lot of issues that weren't touched on. And the scripts, never talked down to kids. It's like, the science fiction was, if you watch it, I mean, the special effects look hokey now because it was state of the art at the time, but now, come on, you have CGI and stuff. But it talked about time doorways and matrices and doppelgangers and paradigms, and it explored a lot of issues, but it never had to explain it to the kids. The kids had to learn what it meant each week, and that's one of the reasons that kids were so, I think, fascinated by it.
Well, I still remember the Slee Stack would make my anxiety go high. I was scared of those things.
Yeah. Well, so the Slee Stack came out, I think, the second or third episode, and the ratings went off the charts. It was NBC's #1 show. And the Slee Stack, I don't know if you know this, but they were all basketball players at UCLA. They were the kids in college. They were 7 feet tall, each of them. So they're 7 feet tall, barefoot. They've got a stilt on with the pointed claws on the feet. They've got a pointed head like Enoch here, but went up. So they're about 10 feet tall in person. So all these guys were basketball players, and one in particular, Bill Laimbeer of the Detroit Pistons, who became the bad boy of basketball and is now the coach for the Aces, the women's team in Las Vegas, was a Slee Stack.
No kidding.
No kidding. And recently, Kathy and I were in Las Vegas for the Star Trek convention, and we went and surprised Bill. He was coaching the ladies' team. And when we walked in, the owner of the team he didn't tell him we were coming, but all the women knew. And they had an 8x10 of a Slee Stack. And as soon as we walked in, they pulled it out and held it above their faces. And he's like this, this Bill Laimbeer, Detroit Pistons, and stuff like that. And the owner said to me, he said, I have never seen Bill smile that much. So I've got a picture, and I look about this tall, this tall. I mean, I'm not the tallest guy in the world anyway, but it's almost cartoonish. But it's amazing what went on for people in the careers after the show. So
So
Like,
and your dad on the show was Rick.
yeah, Rick Marshall.
Okay, but the song goes Marshall, Will, and Holly.
I know. Now I sang that song. I sang the theme songs. Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition met the greatest earthquake ever known. High on the rapids, it struck their tiny raft. Plunged them down 1,000 feet below to the land of the lost, 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 to the land of the lost. And then Grumpy the dinosaur goes, roar. And it was Marshall, Will, and Holly, not Rick Marshall, Will, and Holly. Yeah, it was. I remember the show was so low budget. I think that they wrote it so fast that they probably it didn't even dawn on them. But in the third season, when we lost our dad, I had to go back in the studio with Michael Lloyd and re-record the theme song because it didn't make sense anymore for the third season. So the third season, it was Will and Holly Marshall, as the earth beneath them trembled, lost their father through the door of time. Uncle Jack was searching and found the kids at last, looking for a way to escape, escape, escape from the land of the lost, the land of the lost. But my favorite is the closing theme song. And so many rock and roll stars, like Tenacious D, Jack Black, have done covers of this song. It's when I look all around, I can't believe the things I found. Now I need to find my way. I'm lost, I'm lost. Find me living in the land of the lost, 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 lost. Living in the land of the lost. Sid Marty Krofft.
I love it. I love it. So, and you are an accomplished musician as well.
Well, I used to sing. I used to open for Bill Cosby at Harrah's in Lake Tahoe in Vegas. But and it was fun because back in the day, I it's like I loved doing these shows. It's all about me, 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 me. I apologize, but I sang in the third season, and I had this like 4-string guitar, like a gourd, but it sounded like an orchestra. It's magic. But I'd go to the Jacksons, the homes of the Jacksons. They wrote all the songs. I would go to their house. They had an apartment house in Santa Monica next to the Mormon Temple. And I would go to their Mormon Temple and across the street, and we would record these little 1-minute ditties that we had. And what was so bizarre, though, I got to tell you, was they didn't have switch plates on their lights. I thought, these people are rich. What the heck's going on? I don't understand. They were like just open switches and stuff like that. I'm going, why don't they finish this? This is an apartment building. Anyway, they were terrific guys. And because back in the day, all the guys and gals that were, there were teen idols on 16 magazine and Tiger Beat and covers we did, like Michael Gray and David Cassidy and all these different people. We hung out. Sean Cassidy and Leif Garrett used to come to my house and swim. Back when we were young and pretty, but so it's just a different world back then. I was on Days of Our Lives at the same time. I did Days of Our Lives for about a decade, played Mike Horton, and Deidre Hall, who's one of the stars of Days of Our Lives, she was starring in Dinah Girl Electro. So I'm on the set of Land of the Lost one day. I'm outside. She comes over to me. I've never met her before. She said, "I'm Deidre. I'm doing the show here with the Crofts." And she says, "I've got an audition for Days of Our Lives, and I know you're on the show." And I said, "Deidre, I know what they're looking for." So she had her sides, which are the script that she had to learn for the audition, and we worked on it. And not that I helped her get the show or anything like that, because she's certainly talented, but she got the part, and to this day, she's the grand dame still of Days of Our Lives. And she's just a delight. So
that's
it's just all these
intertwining. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, okay.
And so, and you're an author. You direct, produce, all these things. I mean, tell us about all your projects.
Oh my God, Kyle, this is this is a Wesley explosion day.
Hey, this is all about you, man.
Sure. Oh God, I have 5 books I've written. One book Disney optioned for an animated feature. It's called The Red Wings of Christmas. It's and I wrote the screenplay and the songs for Disney. It's been sitting on the shelf, but they optioned it, and it's available on Kindle on Amazon for the holidays. I have a lot of schools that use it, and they read it. It's a chapter book. They read a chapter after Thanksgiving until Christmas. And yeah, I mean, I have kids' books and Dragon Tales, and I've got a new show I just sold as an executive producer of a reality show, which I can't talk about yet because they won't let me, but we'll be announcing hopefully within the next few weeks. We'll go into production. It's been 2 years in the making of this show. And I do a lot of charity work. We raise a lot of money for shelter from the storm, battered women, breast cancer, AIDS. I produce big shows with celebrity shows, and we raise a lot of money, and that's my giving back. I don't listen. I am so blessed. I don't take any of this for granted. I'm a little kid from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I didn't have anybody in the business. There was nobody. I announced when I was 5 years old, I'm going to be an actor, and they go, crazy kid, yeah. Get out of our family, and so it was, I am so lucky to have had what I've had. We all sometimes want more, but a day doesn't go by that I don't look around what my house and what my friends in my life and just go, wow, what a journey. And it's gratitude. I live in gratitude a lot. I remember when The Secret came out, the book about The Secret, and it was this big hoopla about it. And The Secret was big. Oh, but the big secret, it's gratitude, being great. And I go, duh. That's what I mean. Pollyanna is my spiritual leader. That's my religion. Here's a girl that walked into a family that hated each other for decades. In 2 weeks, they all loved each other and were hugging and kissing. How much better could you be? That's how I live my life. And I try to give back as much as I can.
When you're grateful for what you already have, then you make room for new things to come into your life.
I 100% agree. I years ago in the early 80s, I left Hollywood and I backpacked around the world, and I moved to Bali. But I thumbed through Iran and Iraq and had knife fights in Rangoon and the Irrawaddy River on the first white people to be allowed back in Burma in 2 decades, and had slept in barnyards in India and all sorts of stuff, and really lived the life. And because I kept going, there's got to be something better than this. I mean, I was having a lot of success, but there was a lot going on in life that was pretty sad. And I thought, what is this really all about? And I said, I'm going to go on a journey. All I could think of was Bali High, that whole musical. It had nothing to do with Bali, but I thought, okay, Bali, I'll go to Bali. And I began this journey, flew to Brussels and made my way through Greece and all the land, and, through Iraq and Pakistan. And oh my God, the stories we had of riding on back of cement trucks and hitchhiking in Pakistan. You couldn't do that now. It's too dangerous. The world is dangerous. But it certainly opened my eyes. And when Disney bought my book while I was gone, and there was no cell phones or things back then, it's the early 80s. And I told Disney I was leaving before, and I said, I'm not coming back. If you want me to write something, I have to do it from Bali. Well, it wouldn't work. The phones, you had to go to the post office, wait in line, get a line out, and talk for a little bit of time. And they said, look, if you want us to do your movie, you better come back. So I came back, and the Red Wings of Christmas. When I wrote the Red Wings of Christmas, I had a meeting at Disney, and Disney's brother came up to me and he said, Wesley, your book is the most spiritual book I've ever read. And I was like, thank you. I mean, it's, the Red Wings of Christmas, it's the story of a little boy in the 1850s. His name is Albert. And as a baby, he's washed overboard in a wooden cradle in a storm, a boat heading to America. A giant hand of a wave lifts up the cradle and washes him to the Thames River. And he's found by an old washerwoman named Tezariah. And he's raised by her until one night, everything. It's very Dickensian. Everything dark happens. He loses Tessie. There's Mr. Lacey's Toy Emporium that has been his joy. Look in the window and the Jack in the Box. And one night he finds he's all alone. He's lost everything. He's a street kid called a mudlark. And they were kids back in the day and in England in the 1800s that would scavenge the Thames River for coal or anything, driftwood, anything they could sell. And they sang. And so this night, when he loses everything, he's distraught. He's 8 years old. He's under one of the bridges, and something falls on him, this cloth. And it ends up to be Father Christmas's toy sack that had fallen out of a sleigh. And he crawls inside, and he begins to fall and tumble. And he enters this world where no child has ever been. It's a place where every broken toy goes. Because every toy that's ever been made, no toy has ever died. Every toy, because a broken toy can be loved and played with, but as soon as that toy is not to be loved or played with, its heart comes out and breaks in half because it's sad. And the two halves begin to circle the toy, light on the back of the toy, and begin to unfurl and become these large red wings of Christmas. And they fly every broken toy into Father Christmas's toy sack. The wings are released, the heart comes back, and they enter this infinite world where they're repaired, made ready, modernized, whatever it takes to find a new home. And it's Albert's, this little boy's journey in this world that he should not be, and what happens. I wrote this book and I read it, and I realized my dad left when I was 2. He abandoned our family. And these were very educated people. And he never came back. And I was set free in this world that I didn't belong in. It was all women. I had no men in my life. Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Texas for a while. And I just it was me searching. And I realized, yeah, it was about me. And I dedicated the book to my friend John Allison, who passed away, was a director from England. And he had died of AIDS in one of the first to go in the early 80s. And I did, and he'd given me the inspiration for the mudlarks in England and bringing it to that kind of sensibility, and his journey finding the red wings of his life and flying away to wherever he was going to go and begin anew was what I dedicated the book to. It was my best friend at the time. So it's interesting. You write something and you don't really realize what you're writing, because obviously we write our experiences in a even if it's a totally animated sort of fanciful fictional place. Turns out it's not so fictional.
It would have been very easy for somebody like you. Oops, excuse me, I'm getting an echo there. You've had something tragic happen in your life, and just to take that negative road, but yet you've brought so much joy into this world. I mean, like I said, my childhood, getting to watch Land of the Lost, and of course my mother and her soap operas. Disney, the Dragon Tales, and plus you did the game show on Nickelodeon, and you just keep bringing more and more joy back into the world, and there should be more people like you.
No, listen, thanks. I lecture at schools. Schools have me come in, and I teach kids how to write books and stuff like that. I have within an hour, an entire auditorium of kids. We write a book and illustrate it in 1 hour. And but Dragon Tales was an interesting journey, because it went on the air, and now we do some shows, and a lot of kids, they're in their 20s, but we have a lot of kids that are on the spectrum. They come to the table and they know every lyric, and they see Cassie and the dolls, the two-headed dragon, Zack and Wheezy, and Ord, and the different characters that were there, and the excitement. I have one young man that I speak to. He lives in Texas, and Zach, and I can talk about him because his mom lets me. Who I call. He's in the hospital a lot, and he's ill, and and we sing the theme song to Dragon Tales all the time. And you know, you just, again, you never know what you create, how it's going to affect or ripple out into the world. And I've been lucky that some of the things that I created, you know, have a positive spin that do bring joy. And that, you know, of course, with Dragon Tales was PBS, and of course, the edict from PBS was to create a show that a positive, a learning show. And I remember I got a phone call that the executive producer at Sony Pictures had, his son's favorite book was The Red Wings of Christmas, the book I'd written. He said, Wesley, I've got these dragon droids. You got to come see these dragon droids. And I think you could write something. There's the U.S. government is offering $16 million for a new kid show. And Sesame Street wants it, and the Muppets want it, and everybody wants it. So I came, and they had written some stuff. I rewrote, created Zack and Wheezy and the Two-Headed Dragon and stuff, and put it together in 3 days, and it sold in a week, and we beat everybody out.
Wow.
But it's amazing how all these things, Enoch, all these things ripple effect, and you know, I don't take it for granted. I mean, I don't. I'm just very blessed. I mean, here I am talking to you. I mean, what a joy.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
When I backpacked around the world, and really backpacked around, when we weren't staying at the Hiltons, with dollar a night hotels, if we could get them in Pakistan, you see what we have here. The worst case scenario here sometimes is the best case scenario in another country. And it doesn't minimize, because everything, you know, everything's relative. Each of our experiences are relative. You know, whatever you have is your experience, and whatever, you know, somebody has more or less or whatever, it's, you know, it's relevant to you and it's relative. So, but when you see such an extreme, like in India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and things like that, I could not have been more grateful for my life. You know, I remember coming home, flying suddenly back to do this thing for Disney, and I had been, you know, we'd been living off of $5 a day was our budget. That was travel, food, and lodging. $5 for two of us. And my mother and my sister picked me up at the airport. I've flown in, you know, I've been living in Bali. I fly in, and they take me to Dupar's restaurant in Los Angeles at the old farmer's market, which is gone, I guess. And I look at the menu, and I think like the burger or something was like $12.95, and I froze. I just like, because my mindset had been $5 for my life every day, and $12.90. I froze, and my mother said, Wesley, you're back in the States, deal with it. You know, and I go, yeah, but it's $12.95, and so everything, you know, is relative, and we've got to find common ground on this planet. We have to, politically and everything, we've got to, and because at the end of the day, we are genetically and DNA all brothers and sisters, all from the same sources. You know, the color of your skin or hair or whatever that is, it's just a very thin, superficial thing that happened because of climate, where you lived and whatever. But we're all of us brothers and sisters, and to separate ourselves from that is it's a very lonely thing to do, and it's also a very dangerous thing to do, I think. And I love what you guys are doing with the Vibe and your radios show and stuff like that. I mean, I think it's really a really powerful thing, especially in these times. And it's something that we all need. And you know, I find myself, I can't watch the news now. I try to turn to I can't watch any show, any movie anymore that somebody's wrongly accused. It viscerally makes me, I get upset. There's so much been going on. So I try to watch, okay, I'll go to animated shows. I watched an animated show, a Japanese one about the moon and stuff. And suddenly there was the mother dies in the first 2 minutes. I go, no, stop. This isn't Bambi. Please. This is supposed to be animation. I want happy. Give me HGTV. Let me see the Property Brothers or somebody. Let's see them take an ugly house and make it pretty at the end. Let's, you know, it's Pygmalion for houses. And I just want to, you know, I want a happy ending. I just want a happy ending.
You've been talking to my wife, haven't you? Because she makes me watch that every weekend.
I'll binge watch it. I mean, I love my Judge Judy's. I love my judge shows because, hopefully that wrong gets righted at the end. Now, lately, I got to tell you, I'm not so thrilled with the judges. I think they're making some terrible decisions, but because I'm opinionated. but I want joy. I mean, I literally viscerally cannot stay in this dark place that the world is bombarding us with all the time. All the messages, even consumerism, all that stuff, which I'm part of. And I like it. I enjoy all the perks of everything. I mean, I'm not, it just doesn't work for me emotionally anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm very fortunate that I have in a position where I can choose a life. There's a lot of people that don't have that choice and are in the situations where they have to do certain things. They have to work every day. They have to struggle. They've got kids that are ill. They've got family that are ill. They've got responsibilities that don't allow them to be like so foo-foo and happy and all that kind of stuff. And I get it, believe me, because I've had my share of it too. And so I'm not trying to say that, I get that everybody has their own life and their own obstacles and battles. I'm just saying that there's hopefully, in the darkest of all of our moments, we can look to some other source for light.
Man, this has been awesome. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me spout off,
Hey, no, this is your time. You get to talk about what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough. And you have made my day for sure.
Thanks, Kyle. So mine too. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody that watches and supports the channel. And we will catch you on the next one.
You got it. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network